In January 2020, a new genetic sequence of a virus was published. And guess what? In the next 40 days, Moderna came up with a new virus vaccine candidate. Now let's take a pause there, okay? And for comparison, let's understand what happened to the malaria vaccine. It did not take weeks, it did not take months. It took years for us to generate the vaccine candidate for malaria. This gap was not purely made of luck, or this gap was not even of any quick urgency, or it was not just because of any better science. So it gave us to a birth of a new operating model, which is data-backed model in the biotech. Let me give you a few examples to really help you understand what it really means. So far, biotech was following a very similar pattern, which is you run an experiment and then you create things in batches. You tested the outcomes, and then you look at the data or you look at the results to see what went really wrong. So data played a role, but majorly it was in terms of passive. We were not using data to the fullest is what I would say. And this model survived only because the biotech timelines were long and the capital that we had was patient, but it all had a huge hidden cost to it. One of the classic examples is Pfizer. So Pfizer clearly defined how this model changed the way biotech is being done. So usually what happens is, we detect the manufacturing problems only after the batch is being produced out there, okay? So what Pfizer did was they entirely reverse engineered this process, okay? And Pfizer calls this as the golden batch. So what happens is during this reverse engineering process, they took all the previous manufacturing data, the results and all of these things, what they call as a golden batch, which is a very optimized result, or say a very favorable result. So they took all that historical data, fed it into a system, and made sure even before a manufacturing batch is being continued or manufacturing batch is being started, they do all the simulation and prediction before to make sure that we have an accurate or say a measurable data. What Pfizer did out of this is they created an mRNA prediction system, and according to data, now they deliver more than 20,000 additional vaccine doses per batch. Just imagine what data can do. It just is mind-blowing to look at such things. And nothing changed here. They did not change the equipment. The factories were still the same. What changed was the role of data in this entire manufacturing system in the biotech companies. Every year, biotech generates around 40 exabytes of data, which is like super huge. And according to World Economic Forum, 90% of the biological and healthcare data are either fragmented or basically cannot be used, that kind of a situation, or it's inaccessible. So as a result of that, what happens is more than 80% of the scientists sitting in all these biotech organizations spend a lot of time in generating data rather than analyzing it. So I'll tell you why this is at a very, very, very high cost, which means they spend their R&D even before they look at the insights, which is like crazy, right? And this inefficiency, it was not at all visible to the world. It was visible. But the thing was, it was tolerated because there was capital. But the real inflection point came when the economics hit. So it was not the science, but it was the economics that changed the entire game, so that tolerance ended after 2021, which is straight after COVID. The funding was cut for the entire biotech ecosystem across the world. Again, based on EY's Beyond Borders report, the funding in 2024 fell down to $20 billion, where rather in 2023, it was $10 billion higher. Okay, so we got $10 billion funding cut in just 1 year. And because of that, what happened is the things went really bad because the cost to produce a drug still stayed at close to $2.6 billion. To produce one drug, the cost still stayed at $2.6 billion. Rather, the funding just came down throughout the industry, which is very, very, very bad. And as a result of that, 39% of the biotech companies have to run with just 12 months of runway, which means they'll all run out of cash. So they were in a desperate need to change the entire system. They were in a desperate need to look for a different playbook. And I think the data gave them that playbook. So this is where the entire industry was forced to change, and bioinformatics came to the rescue. So it addressed the first bottleneck. Okay, so what it did is across the systems, it could be spreadsheets, it could be any lab systems or any manual data out there. It basically structured and it put together all these data sets so that it could be in more structured and more usable formats. And that was very, very, very important to the entire industry. And we saw that in the example of the Moderna case, right? So when the paper or when the report on the new viral genome was published, Moderna just did not look it as a report to read. Rather, they looked it as data to be analyzed. So they took out the data, built AI models, and AI did the job. AI did not basically something meant to replace biology, but it is something that can help aid in changing this entire industry or making this industry move forward. Some companies like in silico medicine exactly did the same. Very similarly, what Pfizer built AI models to run their manufacturing facility much better. So what did in silico medicine did is rather than just experimenting with thousands of molecules to screen their drug targets, they created models so that they screened most of them computationally, and this saved a lot of time, energy, and the company itself. This thing was confirmed by the infrastructure. So what happened was the huge thing happened when NVIDIA came into the picture. So once the data or once the decision making entirely shift towards the data, which is data became the center of the decision making, especially in the life science companies. So what happened was in Q3 2025, so NVIDIA reported close to 41 billion revenue with just 88% of this entire coming from the data center and the AI models. Okay, and this is the complete layer now the entire biotech industry runs on. So which means the NVIDIA's biggest client or the biggest customer base became the biotech and the healthcare companies across the world. And the demand has just been accelerating ever since then. So US tripled the amount of data that's been generated over the last just 2-3 years, which is like crazy amounts of data. And to add on to that, so Pfizer also built its internal AI system called WOX. Now it's being used by 1,500 scientists just inside that ecosystem, where they drastically reduce the time to 80% in their drug discovery or in their internal processes. And it's not just with Pfizer. So much other companies today use a lot of AI systems, today use a lot of data centered systems out there. I think that is reportedly, we have close to 750 active AI models guiding decisions across the entire biotech industry. More crazy data. So these are not just pilots. So these became the entire operating systems at which the entire industry is running. And what data is telling right now is biology has crossed the threshold of data. It has crossed that data, and the amount of data that is being generated over the last 3 years is crazy. The public sequence archives grew somewhere from between 25.6 petabases in 2021 to 107 petabases in 2024. Just look at it, in span of just 3 years, I think we grew 3x in terms of the number of data sets being generated. This clearly shows us that biology is no longer a small data game. It's a large-scale data game. And this large-scale data changes the competition. It changes the entire landscape itself. With majorly being, like I said, how we looked at bioinformatics being one of the solution to this entire bottleneck. The bioinformatics industry is alone expected to grow somewhere from, say, $20 billion all the way until $55 billion in the next decade, which is like crazy. So you all know that today developing a new drug, it still costs somewhere between $2.6 billion and takes somewhere between 10 to 15 years. But with AI, data, and bioinformatics coming into the picture, this entire thing will change, and it's already been changing. And so far, we've had expensive medicines, longer wait times, and all of that. Like I said, again, with technology, everything is being shifted across the world. And companies that have already invested in, like, say, bioinformatics and AI are already reaping the benefits. So we already have close to 50 to 70% of them who has invested here, whose time has gone down drastically down. So what took before 10 to 15 years will now take only 3 to 6 years. So biotech is not becoming data driven because the entire industry wants to move fast. This is something that we all really need to understand. So biotech is moving data driven because the old system that is there is not fit for scale. The old systems cannot be scaled, because I think that's how it's all been devised throughout. And the next decade of medicines, or the next decades of drugs, or the next decades of companies is not decided on who runs most of the experiments or who has most of the data. It will surely be decided only by, say, who uses data rightly to predict what. And I think this is what the future of healthcare and the entire biotech ecosystem is going to be. If you are a biotech student or someone who is working in the biotech industry, and if this video really kept you hooked, the entire Bversity team is working towards to get you more such exciting content about this industry. So subscribe, follow, and share this with your fellow biotech mates.